Hello, and welcome to the SharePoint Framework and JavaScript Special Interest Group Biweekly Sync. It is March 25th, 2021. I'm your host, Patrick Rodgers, for this call, and we've got a great agenda as always for you. Today, we'll do some latest updates on SharePoint Framework, patterns and practices updates across the program, new community samples, picture time, and then we have three great demos. We got Mikkel Svensson with some building extensions to save documents in PDFs in tenant document libraries. David Romalo is sending messages to Microsoft Teams using Graph, so very excited to see that. And then Pat and Luca are here to share their passwords and the latest on SharePoint Framework, both current and next steps. So we've had an interesting couple of days with that, so look forward to hearing from them on the next steps there and to get that information out to all of you. Before we get there, a couple normal things we'd like to cover. Opportunities to participate in this call or the larger Patterns and Practices program. You can always demo on the calls. We love our demos. So please, if you're interested in demoing some of the great work you are doing for your customers or your company that you might work for, just reach out to myself, reach out to Vesa. We'll get you signed up for an upcoming call. Those can be anything around SPFX, anything around at PnP, anything using the graph stuff. Anything you're doing client-side development-wise for this call or otherwise for our other calls as well, please reach out. We'd love to get you on the demos. They're one of the best parts of the call. And they have been outstanding, as always, the last few weeks. So look forward to that continuing. You can always contribute on GitHub. That takes the form of reporting issues, submitting pull requests. You can always help folks out with issues and questions they might have if you have a few minutes and happen to know the answer. And as always, on all the things we do, we welcome your feedback on the calls. How are the calls we're doing? How's our documentation? Where can we help? Specific feedback is great. If you can, hey, your documentation could be better is always true. But if you can give us concrete examples of where we can help as just one example, that really helps us kind of prioritize and drive things. Always appreciate everybody's feedback. And of course, positive feedback is okay too, because if you like something we're doing, perhaps we can do a little bit more of it. Next up is our Pajo links. So we've got links to our developer videos, which are developer-focused scenario-based videos around things like auth and starting SPFX dev and things like that. We have the community videos, which are videos around these calls. So the recordings for all of our community calls, various other community calls or community events that aren't necessarily developer-focused videos that are more community-based videos. You can check those out. We have a lot of great open source organizations around SharePoint, PnP, Office Dev, and Microsoft Graph, all of which are interested in your feedback, interested in your contributions and participation. So participate in any and all of those that you might be interested in. Lots of outstanding stuff happening across the entire open source spectrum there. And then sample galleries, tons of great samples for web parts, extensions, list formatting, and teams. And there's other samples out there, of course, in the world, but this is a great start. That's where I go when I've got a project or a question from a customer. Love to check out the samples and see how other people might have solved things and get some great ideas from all the great work all of you are doing in the community. It's really a great multiplier of learning to check those out. And then finally, if that was all a lot to remember, aka.ms/m365pnp will get you all of the Patterns and Practices program content all up, links out to all the rest of the stuff, as well as explanations on all the stuff we're doing. So aka.ms/m365pnp. If you're looking specifically for the SharePoint Framework documentation, aka.ms/spfx will get you that. And with that, we are on to Sharing is Caring with David.
Thank you, Patrick. Well, friends, as you know, we are an inclusive and open source community, and that means we welcome everyone to utilize the resources as well as contribute back to the resources. But we understand that there may be some hurdles involved, such as how do I get started with GitHub? How do I utilize the different versions of Node or SPFX? A whole host of questions could prevent you from getting more involved. Sharing is Caring provides hands-on guidance sessions where we'll walk you through together how you can utilize all of these resources and then also give back to the community. We've got a variety of open source and upcoming sessions, as you can see, that span a wide spectrum of topics of interest. So we invite you to join any or all of them. They're all free, safe space, non-recorded sessions where you're able to ask any and all questions that you may have. And we also have monthly AMAs now, Ask Me Anything. So that one is scheduled for April for the CLI for Microsoft 365. We also would like to welcome Louise Fries to the team. She has officially joined our team, so we're growing, which means that we're going to see an increased number of topics, things like the Power Platform, and a whole host of other exciting opportunities. So aka.ms/sharing is caring. Sign up for one. We hope to see you soon. Patrick, back to you.
Also, thanks, David, for that update. And it really is just outstanding stuff you and Hugo and now Luis have done with the Sharing is Caring initiative. tons of great feedback there. So if you're interested in getting started or just want to ask some questions and want a place to do that, absolutely encourage every one of you to join into these. They're fantastic sessions, and it's really great to see this program continue to grow and expand. So awesome work to all of you. Somebody has snuck a slide in here that I had missed. Building apps with Microsoft Graph. We got a 2-hour live stream coming up with by developers for developers. That's going to be on April 14th, 2021. That is shockingly in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It's already going to be mid-April. So 2 to 4 p.m. AEST and 8:30 to 10:30 a.m. Pacific time. And join us at AK.MS Learn Together-Graph. Tons of amazing stuff going on with I guess I'll call it the Graph ecosystem all up. So the Graph APIs themselves are expanding and improving. Lots of great, exciting work happening with the SDKs and the Microsoft Graph Toolkit. All kinds of exciting stuff. So great session if you are new to Microsoft Graph development or just want to learn some new tricks. Really encourage you to check this out. It's a great learning together event. I believe you have the option to ask questions and things there as well. So check that out. It's another fantastic learning opportunity focused around Microsoft Graph. So more fun stuff for the community. And we have a preview out of the new Microsoft 365 Extensibility Lookbook Gallery. Check that out. It's a great way to sort of see what is possible with SharePoint, with Teams, with some of these other canvases. And so that's ak.ms/m365/extensibility. And I just learned you can add an extra path to your ak.ms links. That's pretty cool. Looking to, it's a great way to see what's possible. You can load these things into your tenant to play with them, see what's going on. Really exciting stuff. These continue to expand and grow as well. So certainly check those out. Very exciting stuff coming on the lookbook front. I feel like there's exciting stuff coming from every team right now. So it's a really exciting time to be a developer on the Microsoft 365 platform. With that, I'll hand things over to Vesa for latest updates on the SharePoint framework.
Excellent, thank you. I'm going to be really fast today because we're going to we'll have the last 15 minutes together with Luca and Pat. I'm just going to quickly update on the situation where we have with SharePoint Framework with 1.12. So 1.12 came out 2 weeks ago, or 1.5 weeks ago. Unfortunately, there were some unexpected regressions in the 1.12, so we have actually deprecated that. So right now, when you install the SharePoint framework with a normal npm install GE Microsoft Generator SharePoint, you will actually get the 1.11. The new version of 1.12 is planned to get out soon. So we're looking into doing a regression or addressing the known regressions and then doing a proper end-to-end quality assurance that a similar situation will not happen with 1.12 and 1. But we'll talk about those things and the next steps and 1.12 issues and all of that in the latter part of the call, so in the little final 15 minutes. So that, well, let's see how the schedule goes. But anyway, as part of all of this, we are reevaluating the release processes and really focusing on the quality assurance and looking into focusing on the quality assurance more and more in the future. So all good for that. We'll talk about that more detailed in the end. Throwing it back to you, Patrick.
All right, thank you, Vesa, for that update. We'll have more on that later, as Vesa said. PnPjs Client-Side updates with Julie.
Hey, thanks, Patrick. Okay, so based on what Vesa just mentioned about the 1.12 version of SPFx, we had released a beta version of PnPjs to deal with a TS-lib regression. We are not going to release that, obviously, out because of the things that have changed since then. So that is on hold. And if anything else needs to change when 1.12 re-releases, we will look at that then. So 2.3.0 released March 12. A ton of fixes, just so many. I couldn't even fit them on the slide. So please go check the changelog because there's a lot there. And definitely keep your feedback coming. I want to reiterate about the fact that we've posted our plans for V3. So there's one overall issue number 1636 that is the summary of all our plans with links out to, we've enabled the discussions in the GitHub repo, and we have a discussion entry for each one of the plans. So you can go and make comments and ask questions and give suggestions if you have any in those discussions. We are tentatively going to close feedback on those for April 15th. Obviously, if some conversations really get rolling and there's a good discussion going, we won't do that. But as of now, it looks like we'll probably close the feedback loop around April 15th. And so then also follow us, M365 PnPjs on Twitter. And that's all I have for today. Thanks.
Oh, sorry, I was trash talking horse battles in the chat. So awesome update there. Really do encourage you all to please check out the discussions around the PnPjs v3 stuff. Really want your feedback, really want your thoughts there. If you have stuff to share, please do. And it's going to be one of those, if you don't like something we end up doing, it's going to kind of be like, well, you had your chance to give us feedback. So please do give us the feedback. CLI for Microsoft 365. New 3.7 is out, upgrading for SharePoint Framework projects to 1.12. Probably pull that out. Checking dev environment compatibility for v1.12. Probably pull that out. Configure CLI to your personal preferences. Retrieve SharePoint site app permissions and much more. So exciting release there. Latest sample scripts, provisioning a team, listing all sites and lists, and deleting all Microsoft 365 groups and SharePoint sites. You can always install the latest beta from @pnp/CLI-Microsoft 365 at latest. Excuse me, and available, as I've mentioned before, natively in the Azure Cloud Shell. So super easy to check out the CLI and give that a try within your tenant without having to really install anything. There's also some fantastic work that's gone around Docker containers for the CLI, which is another great way to try it out without really having to install or set up a lot of things there. So certainly check out the CLI. It continues to be improved and continues to have a ton of great community contributions. So exciting to see it grow and grow. SPFx reusable components. We've got a React Controls 2.6.0 out with a bunch of new controls and enhanced controls. And then the React Controls 3.0 have SPFx 1.12 support. So we'll see how that evolves. The property controls, a bunch of new controls there as well, as including various fixes. That's 2.5.0. And then the property controls 3.0 supporting SPFx 1.12. We'll see how that evolves as well. Special thanks, of course, to all the contributors here. The controls are another amazing resource for the community, and absolutely encourage you to check those out. So you've got the controls, which are designed for the body of your web parts, and the property controls controls could be application customizers, web parts, wherever. The property controls are designed specifically for the edit pane of your web parts. So a great tool to have in your tool bag. Oh, and we have a new maintainer. I'm sorry, I almost forgot to mention that. Joel Rodriguez. Very excited to see him join the maintainers team for the SPFx controls. He's been a long-time contributor, so fantastic to see him join in and get a little bit more involved. Always awesome to see that as people go from being contributors to maintainers. So very exciting stuff. Next steps for the Yeoman generator. This is the community SPFx Yeoman generator. So generator 1.16 is out now. Angular 11 is now supported in that version. Source maps for Angular. And Chandani did a bunch of the work around Angular. So great work there. And thank you very much for those contributions. And other updates, Fluent UI Fabric 7, PnP controls and property controls have been updated. PnPjs to 2.0.13. Vue.js, StyleLint, future upgrades working on SPFx 1.12. Again, we'll see how that evolves. npm install -g @pnp/generator SPFx to check that out. It's a fantastic way to build up what is a real, in quotes, SharePoint framework project. It uses all the same underlying dependencies as the normal, official Microsoft generator, but provides you a bunch of extra configuration options as you get started with your project to set things up using a bunch of frameworks such as Angular or Vue that aren't supported by the out-of-the-box generator. Another awesome tool in the tool belt. And then Modern Search is on the call.
Yes. So we released version 3.18.1 dot release because there was a bug. That was last week, and then finally got version 4.1 out the door as well. There's a bunch of fixes in there. You no longer need to deploy to the tenant app catalog. I think that's the most important part for people using version 4, and we do see more and more adoption, which is great. We got Danish translation in. If someone wants to take a look at the French or Spanish translation, feel free to contribute. We would love to have more contributors. Right now, Frank Corno is doing most of the stuff on version 4, and I'm maintaining version 3. So more people would be helpful. We do get a lot of issues every single day on this web part, so more love would be great. Yes.
Fantastic. Thanks for the updates. Everything needs more love. So great work there. It's awesome to see the modern search grow. And if you're interested in search or working on this, it sounds like a great opportunity to get involved. Now, SPFx samples with Hugo.
Well, thank you. Have we got some samples for you? So we have the PnP sample repositories, and they're here to get you started by providing some sample code that's built by an inclusive community. We welcome everyone, and we encourage, obviously, a positive attitude in helping each other. These repositories, we hope that they become the first step that every developer will take when they need to start a new solution. So here's the updates for the last 2 weeks. We don't have anything new for the SPFx extensions. It just don't get enough love these days. But we have a new sample from Nandeep, Ravi, and Smita, who created a new Teams meeting app, which shows a questionnaire that you can fill, and it's associated to the meeting itself. We also have an update from Bo George, who created the version 2 of his awesome question and answers web part. Peter Paul Kirshner updated, made multiple fixes to the calendar web part. Peter Paul also created a new image editor web part, which is actually full feature, and we'll be seeing that, I believe, on April 8th. And Joel Rodriguez updated his jump to folder extension with added sort capability. And that's pretty much it. We welcome contributions and thank everyone for all your awesome updates.
Fantastic. Thanks, Hugo, for sort of organizing that and running that. And thanks to all of you for contributing your samples. It's really amazing and exciting to see what the community builds and all the innovation happening out there. And thank you all for sharing it so we can all benefit from those learnings. And now we're into optional picture time, video on, and we'll grab a quick together mode pick right before we get into the demos.
Yep, let me share my screen, and so we can actually see what I'm.
The wine cellar. Look at that.
So let's see. I'm not going to even enable my video because most likely we'll fill up the room in the 50 limit relatively fast. Let's wait a while. I think we're hitting the 50 pretty fast. It's actually cool to see. Cool. I think that's it. All of the seats are taken. So let's wave some hands. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining. Thanks for being virtually present in these rooms. This is much better than nothing, for sure. So thank you. We'll get a social media GIF on that one later today. And let's jump back on the demos.
All right, Derek, I hope your hand gets better. So you got a cast on there. Sorry about that. So demos, we'll just go to our first demo, and that is going to be Mikael Svensson. So if you want to go ahead and take over the presentation and start your demo, fire away.
All right, so I think it's probably 2 years ago I created this list view extension for converting documents or supported file formats into PDFs in line from the library, but it was sitting in the repo of my old employer, so we decided, well, let's just move it over to PnP and maybe we get more traction to it. So the idea is that, I mean, often you might be sitting in a library, you have one or multiple files, and you might want to either download these as PDFs or convert them to PDF. The good thing about this solution is that it's using out-of-the-box API, so there's no external calls to Flow or Azure Functions Service, whatever. It's all just using the internal APIs. So I'll cover that later as well. So let's just start with one. If I do one document first. So I have download as PDF and convert to PDF. So now if I do convert to PDF, processing, and then it's generating, and we should see an update here. And here's my file. So I guess I can open this as well. You see, well, it just had some text in it. I can also do, so let me just remove this. And I can do 2 files. And then we can go back. Oh, sorry, it was already there. And then convert to PDF. Processing the first one, processing the second one, and we should probably get a couple of PDFs updated here. Yep. Then. So this one also had an image in it. And let's just delete them again, and then let's do the download demo. So if I do download, it will convert them, and then it will use JS-zip on the page to zip them up and give you a zip file. And, with the same files, with a small powered by PnP text file in there. And if I open this file, you see it's the same PDF. So all quite simple. So how is this actually working behind the scenes? That's sort of that might be what you're wondering. I can cover a couple of things first. So first up, the icons here, which are also themed, and they're SVG icons. So I covered this in my last demo as well. So I'm using the same trick. That means I'm using SVG XML, and then I'm getting the theme color and then just putting that in as a fill color of this SVG. So that's sort of a good pattern if you want icons, which looks and scales good and then picks up the current theme. At the beginning of my list view command set, so this is on list view updated, I am checking, well, do you have permissions to add items to the library? Because if you don't have write access to the library, well, you can't really do any conversion. And then there are two different methods. We have export, and then we have save as, which generates to SharePoint. So if you look at the save as, the one doing the conversion, we have first generate PDF URLs. And if I go to this helper function, so you see it's using render list data as stream, where the important part is the different options I pass in, which it like enable media TA URLs. So if I go back to the documentation, I think I work here. So here's the options for render list data. And then you see enable media TA URLs, enables URLs pointing to the media TA service or meta service, which gives you a thumbnail URL, video manifest, and PDF conversion URLs. So this is on the, so if you search for render list data as stream, you get the official documentation, and that's what's being listed. Right. So what I do then is I pull out all the files, and then so we need the PDF conversion URL, and we have the media base URL because these are being picked up by the CDN. So then I'm loading these fields for the items, putting them into the payload, and then we're creating the payload to get these files. So that's just generating the URLs. If we go back, right, and then if we do save, so the save method. So what happens is we take the document URL and then the full URL, and then I replace the extension, which in this case is docx and then PDF, and then we do a copy. So here's a copy down here. So basically what happens is I copy the entire Word document, because then you get all the metadata as well, but I rename it at the same time to PDF. And then we read the so here's the PDF URL, which reads the converted files, and then get the blob data and then write that back to the file. So that's sort of an easy way to maintain all the metadata, but replace the actual contents with the PDF contents, so the binary stuff works. And here's a small fix. So there was some race conditions where the internal file type wasn't set to PDF. So that means even though the file here said .pdf in the extension, it still had a Word icon because SharePoint hadn't caught up with internal fields. So it's just running an extra update to ensure that this works correctly and as expected. I haven't had any reports of issues afterwards. So that's basically the conversion. And then the same is for download, but instead of copying it to a PDF file, if we look at the zip code. So it just takes the blobs, adds it to a zip file, and then saves it out to the client, right? So it's not a big deal. Do you have any questions? Do you have any comments, Vesa? You typically are good to sort of clue me back into stuff I forget, details.
I think, did we go through the deployment thing related on getting the extension across the tenants? Just from this side, just to pinpoint.
No, I mean it's an app package which is deployed to the tenant app catalog, so like same as all SharePoint Framework stuff.
Yep. But can you open up the tenant-wide deployment configuration in this?
Let's see if.
Just a reminder on that one for most and some people it might be super clear, but again, this is such a powerful feature, and we have a few minutes time to spend here. So.
Right. So I probably haven't built it, so that means you do upload, and then it's a tenant-wide extension. I don't think I have the package built.
Let's go to the site. It should be there by default. That's the beauty. So
yes,
if
so
you
it's
go to the
deployed
site
to all
contents,
sites. Yeah.
If you go to the site contents, in the not in here, in the app catalog.
In the app catalog.
Yep.
All right.
I'm completely messing up your demo, so it's all good. Tenant-wide extensions listed over there. We're potentially looking into putting this, by the way, in the app catalog left menu pretty soon. And this basically means in here, since when Mikael created the solution, we do create the default XML and files as part of the solution structure. We'll have a look on those as well. But the beauty of doing this is that now by default, every single document library will have this extension in them. It doesn't matter where you create the document library, this extension will be lighting up across the tenant, and that's beautiful.
And you see I have 2 of these, which is probably why I am getting a nice error. So if I go here and open this, you see I have
multiple ones. There we go.
1, 2, 3.
But we could easily control, because we control all of this from one centralized location, which is that list, which is in app catalog. And that's the beauty of this model. So you don't have to go to the site level to change things. You come here, delete one file and a row from here, and that changes. Or you can disable one of them, and that impacts immediately runtime, the experiences across the tenants. No delays, no nothing. It's a runtime resolution.
And of course, if you don't
caching
want
delay, if we're being super practical from a technical perspective, but still. Anyway.
And if you don't want PDF conversion in all your sites, I don't know why, but then you can deploy it to site app catalog as well. So you only get it for that one site.
Or you can filter that only to a specific web template. Now, can we go to the solution? Let's just pinpoint where this is happening. So if we go to the solution, a SharePoint folder, extend the SharePoint folder.
The SharePoint folder, and we have
these. That's basically what is causing the. That's the custom action, and this one is the client-side component instance. This is the one which is adding the instance to the tenant-wide deployment list, and then that basically. This is the information which is being visible on that list, and then that enables the runtime resolution of the extension across the tenant automatically, which is beautiful.
Yeah, and 101 means it's available in document libraries.
So I've just a funny side note on that one. Just had a meeting earlier today with our China team, who's looking into modernizing the whole app catalog end-to-end and all of that stuff, and store. There's a lot of announcements coming on there, and they were wondering, or the PM who doesn't have years and years of expertise related on SharePoint, how would you know that 101 is a document library? How would you know that SDS-3 is a modern subsite? Well, of course you know if you're in SharePoint for a while, but you wouldn't know otherwise. So potentially at some point we'll have a nice administrative UX to manage all of these settings. For now, it's this codes which are documented though. So
I mean, but if you Google for it, you will find it, right? It's all on the web.
That's true. Yeah, that's a 20 years long of the document library has been 101 for 20 years. So that's the thing. So, which is mind blowing. Cool.
So with that reminiscing, I think we are going to move on from that fantastic demo. Thank you much to David Ramala with his demo around sending messages to teams with Graph.
All right. So I built a sample web part that I installed on my tenant that pretty much allows us to send a message to teams using Microsoft Graph and allow us pretty much to make like a quick chat not a quick chat, but send something very quickly to someone. First, introduce myself. So my name is David Ramalho. I am a SharePoint developer. I work at Storm Technology, a company based on Ireland. Currently, I'm in Portugal, soon planning to move to Dublin because this COVID stuff is still pretty much locked down here in Portugal. So I am also a Microsoft MVP for apps and services. If you want to follow me, you can go to this Twitter hashtag #Ramalho. I have also a blog site where I post things that I generally do as well. And I have here my LinkedIn in case that you want to contact for anything related with this demo or anything else that I can help. So a quick agenda on this. So basically, the first thing that I want to review is the graph endpoints required for me to process this request to send a message to someone. Then I will make a demo of the web part working and also go into the code and explain pretty much how I built that solution quickly. Also, I didn't have here, but I will show you some things that I think are very useful when you are developing something using Microsoft Graph. They have really good things that help us to reach much further into the actual solution. So the graph endpoints required. I have also added here an email. So basically, to send an email, it's a very straightforward process. You have an endpoint for that where you can send an email. It would be nice if you have for Teams something like that. Unfortunately, you don't have, so you have to make some extra calls. So the first call that we are making is to get your user information. Generally, you have this API that is pretty common to be used. So you just hit /me. The same will happen for the user that you want to contact. So basically, you can pass the user ID if you have that user ID or this user principal name. It could be the user email that you are trying to reach. The third post that we're going to use is the beta graph API. It is called chats, and you make a post for this API. The interesting thing about this is if you don't have a chat with someone else from your organization, it will create a chat for you and give you that ID. If you already have an existing chat with that person and you hit this endpoint, you will not create a new chat conversation with that person. It will rather send you the current chat that you have with that person, which is really nice because it helps us to utilize the same Teams resource than anything else. Lastly, you just hit this endpoint with the chat and then the chat ID /messages, and you define a JSON post that you're going to send to the person. So let's now jump into the demo. First, I would like to start where I got some things on the actual app. So first, I use some PnP Controls React, which is very, very useful because they already have a predefined assets that you can use, and it's pretty much just copy and paste these and adapt a few things, and you're gonna have an actual component ready to be used anywhere, which is really great. You have also a bunch of different options here. They are constantly growing, which is great for us developers to use. One thing that I want to show you is the Graph Explorer as well. I use these a lot to try to understand what replies I'm gonna get, and also which post messages. Generally, I just build something very quickly. So this is just to create this chat that I mentioned. And for instance, this one will have like these members, this chat type, and so on. You can see that I have a couple of definitions that need to be sent. And the great thing about this is if I run this, I will get, of course, a response here, preview, where I got this information. But the great thing that I really love about this is these code snippets. These code snippets allow you to have like a quick preview on the interface that you're gonna need for you to have, for instance, on C#, on JavaScript. And if you copy these and you paste on your own code, most likely it will work, which is really great because you have access to pretty much how the code will look like in terms of APIs. So let's now go back to the demo. So the web part that I built will have, this is the front end. So basically you could have like a SharePoint site and have these tiles being displayed on the page. The first thing that I can show you is the email. And here, once I hit email, you see that I go directly to this part. Here is using the people picker control from PnPjs, and I'm just searching here for my user, which is Eusebio Ferreira, and here I can put any name about anything. Once I hit submit, I am making the request call, and the email has been sent. I will show you now the client. So basically the Eusebio Ferreira. If I come here to his email, you see that I send you something called Galway. This is really great because it helps us a lot to send you like quick emails to someone. The other part is the Teams messages, which is the thing that I provided on the SPFx demo library, and you can take a look. And here you have a lot less options because you don't need a subject. You just have the message, and here it's the same principle. You just pick the person here, which is Eusebio, and then you can send a message, just hello, for instance. This could be helpful for anything. I imagine this, for instance, to be used like if you have a birthday cards or anything like that. You can eventually include this part to send a message to someone else, give him congratulations, or even you can have like a drop-down option with predefined messages. This is really great because it will help your people to be contacted each other. So going back to the other client, if I come here and now I go to chats, I have here the message saying hello, and this is a quick example on how you can have. So now going back to the code, another thing about the email one, when you send the email via graph, this is quite interesting because you will not have the email on your inbox on sent items. I found this really interesting, but just to keep it in mind, as we saw on the other demo previously from Michael, is the same process. So we come here up on SharePoint, you just drag and drop here this solution. Because we are using Microsoft Graph, after you upload this solution, it will ask you for approving some extra things, which is Microsoft Graph requests. And I will show all of them in a minute, but generally when you upload this for the first time, you're going to have like pending requests, all these graphs endpoints that are required for this solution in order to send a message, send an email, and have access to the user endpoints. So now going back to code, probably I will start with this part. So when you go to the package solution.json, you have here this API permission request is where you define the scopes that you're going to need for the graph to made. And here you can define all of them. The way that I divided this web part, I have like two different parts. One are the components, and for the components, I have three different parts. So the starting area is these two tiles that you see at the top. Then you have the email messages and the Teams message. I will go into detail soon on these ones. And I have like a service file as well. And on this service file is where I got all the requests that I made to Graph. If I come here, this is a very simple web part. I don't have, for instance, property panes configurations at this stage. Eventually, you could use some. And if you want to use that, I would recommend as well to check the PnP ones, because it's a great way to start. So let's go back to the graph. On the services, we have the graphs. Generally here, I just put the endpoints that I'm going to hit. For instance, I have this one here. This one is, for instance, for getting the me API, so get the user current ID. Here, I just put here briefly so you can see how the body will look like when you hit this chat endpoint, and then it's the request, very simple, and I try to make exactly as the other ones. Then we have as well the send message that will only include the set message, and as you see here, you have like your body, how it's supposed to look like. So for this one, we just have the body, then the content, and the content is the message that we insert on the text area before, and this one is for the emails. So for the emails, we have a couple more properties, and eventually it's possible for you to send to more than one person. Here is the sample that we have on the Microsoft Graph documentation. And here again is the body, and you just send the body onto the client. So now let's go for the starting area. On starting area, I have like I'm using React hooks here. I think they are very good to build on top of React. And here I have like a document card as well, where I built pretty much the initial layout. And when people click on different components, I just send the properties that I want to show, to send to those properties. And here, for instance, to know if I got the teams activated or not, I send here the React hook to that component. So when I click back, I can set this back to true, and it will display the original, the starting stage of these components. On the emails web part, pretty simple. Again, I have almost the same structure. Here, as you can see, I'm using the people picker. So with pretty much the structure that we have there. I have a text field for the subject. This is for the email body. And then I have like the submit button and back button. On the back button, as you see here, I just set that property to false. That means the Outlook is not active. So we go back to the backstage. Here, in terms of when I click on the button to submit the request, so pretty much to send the email to the person, I just need this endpoint. This is the service that I've created before with send email. I just send that email. One important thing is this, why I'm using here is user 0 then secondary text, because on the people picker from PnP controls, the secondary text is the email of the person. And because I have I just select one person from here, I have a limit. I know this is going to be the email that we want to send the email. The same will happen for the Teams message. They are very similar. The only difference between both is here I need to make these 4 extra calls, as you saw at the agenda items, at the agenda where you are reviewing these codes. So I am getting the current user ID, the user that I want to send the message ID. I create the chat, and this chat is the chat that I have spoken, and then I just send the message with the text and with the chat that we know that we have the ID. Send that back to the user. And this is pretty much how the application works in terms of components and everything else. And of course, if you have any questions, I didn't look at the chat, so I'm not sure if I have any questions, but if I have, I'm more than happy to reply to them.
I didn't see anything major in the chat, but you can always follow up with folks in the chat there as needed. But I think now it's time to move on to 2 very special guests. Pat Miller and Luca Bandinelli are here. They've been working on SharePoint for like 25 years of the 20-year history. So I want to welcome them to the call and let them take it away. I don't know if you guys have slides or what your plan is.
Yeah, there's a few slides. I'm sharing my screen, the slides. So this is Vesa. I'm not Luca. People always confuse me and Luca. And
yeah, you guys look exactly
kidding.
the same.
Exactly the same, yes. Actually, let's do the intros right now. Can we do Pat and Luca? Can you go one by one and tell who you are and introduce yourself?
I'm the developer lead for the developer platform, SPFx, on all things related there. Yeah, I guess I've been around SharePoint for all 20 years or so. The company I worked for got acquired back in 2001 by Microsoft as part of Content Management Server, and then we merged in with SharePoint in like 2003 or so, 2004, and have been around there ever since.
Cool. And then Luca, before we go to you, I have to say that there's apparently an awesome movie from Pixar coming about you later this year.
Exactly, and I don't sing there. People say that I'm one there that sings. That's not me, unfortunately. But anyhow. Luca, I've been in Microsoft for 21 years, and my first gig was I wasn't consulting by the time, and my first gig was the support readiness for codename Tahoe in 2000. And since there, I've been around SharePoint, both in the field together with Vesa as well as in the product group. And I own
Probably a
SharePoint.
worse time was the one when you were my manager at some point. So.
And that's what you keep saying. Sorry about that.
Okay, so before we go to the 112, just a classic slide, what we actually always show in this, and we'll talk about what this actually means as well. But we talked about the Viva Connections. This is kind of a teaser as well, because Viva Connections is Viva Connections Desktop, which is only a subset of Viva Connections, is going to go actually to preview on 31st of March. That information is already published and public. And I will actually share you the link to that document, which is already saying that. So there will be first step in moving towards Viva Connections. And the extensibility model with Viva Connections, which is inside of Microsoft Teams, will be SPFx. But we'll talk about what this means in the SPFx, probably on the future steps of SPFx. Now, I will actually show the presentation or communication then for Luca and Pat. I'm technically in the same team as Luca, but we have slightly different roles. He's the leading PM on the SPFx. I'm just the talkative Finn, right? But take it away.
Pat, you want to go?
No, go for it.
Sure. So let's talk about 112.1 release, which is what we are going to ship soon after some kind of fixes that we are working on, thanks to feedback that we got, as well as some new round of extensive tests. So the first thing is that considering that we want to improve what we had, and part of the testing we are redoing all the testing in Node 14 and Gulp 4. We are going to ship 112.1 with support of Gulp 4. So, with support, of course, of Gulp 4 and Node 14. So Node 14 will be supported in 112.1 release. That's one of the things we're working on. We are then providing more access to page structure context via some a new API, so that we will have less needs for you to be able to accomplish what you want to do by doing DOM manipulation, which unfortunately it's still possible via SPFx, but it's not good practice because, as you know, we some now and then change our DOM structure, and that will break some of the solutions that take dependencies on that. Just like was mentioned before, we are keeping our journey in making SharePoint Framework the development framework for Microsoft Teams as well for SharePoint. So we are adding a couple of new functionalities to make better solutions using SharePoint Framework on Microsoft Teams. Namely, we are giving the ability to support complex manifest and complex solution in Microsoft Teams using SharePoint Framework, which means that you will be able to create your complex team solution that includes SharePoint Framework solution, bots, provider SaaS, so very big and complex manifest, put that inside your SharePoint Framework package, and when you sync to Teams, the Sync Teams API will sync the solution in Microsoft Teams. And instead of creating the manifest in the way we do today, if we detect that the Teams package is part of the SharePoint package, we will basically sync that over there. And actually, another nice thing that we were able to squeeze in in 112.1 is that we are using the new Graph API that Teams provided, so that you will no longer need it. Oh,
you no longer have to be an admin.
You no longer have to be an Teams admin.
Teams admin.
Because we will use the new approval API. So if you're not a Teams admin, you will still be able to sync the manifest. That doesn't matter if it's a complex manifest or if it's the manifest that we create. And the manifest will be there ready to be approved by the Teams admin. We are then also providing support for Microsoft Teams meetings apps, and initial here is crucial because the Microsoft Teams meetings apps are a little bit in the initial phase as well, so they have a little bit of limitation, but we're working on that. There is actually a bug that has been fixed in Teams and is rolling out as we speak. So some of the functionalities for accessing the context of Teams in the meeting app will be there as soon as the client in Teams get updated. So it's different thing that is happening in parallel with SPFx. And we also added support for the Teams SDK 1.8. And then we are working on fixing some of the bugs and the problems that have been found when 1.12.0 was released, especially and specifically. We are fixing the following things. We are fixing the ability to externalize libraries, just like jQuery. The loading of gulp serve, it's something that we are fixing as well. Then we will re-add support for Azure CDN. The package icon fix has been fixed as well, and the TSLib version mismatch so that you can use your version of TSLib. And if you're not using the one that we release, we will not buffer anymore. So those are
the last one is related on the discussions earlier from this call. So the PnPjs and the new major version doesn't happen because this is going to get fixed in the 1.12.1. So the last one. But now, and let's go to the future of things. So anything what we can elaborate here? Obviously, the Viva Connections thing I already mentioned. So Viva Connection Desktop, which is only a subset of Viva Connections capabilities, is going to go to preview in the 31st of March. But what does it mean for us as a SharePoint framework developers?
So one of the things that we want to add in the next release, the next major release, I can say that instead of the dot release of SPFx, is the ability to create adaptive card extensions or ACEs for Viva Connection Desktop, which will basically allow developers to use SharePoint Framework to create components that we are tentatively named as cards. That's probably the final name, but we're still deciding on that. So components that will surface in the dashboard using a kind of declarative model, which means that you will still be able to use SharePoint Framework to create your interaction with the backend and APIs, but in terms of UX, you will be able to interact with the UX of the dashboard using adaptive card and using a declarative model for the kind of the facade or the view that you would have with your component. That, of course, has some limitations and some positive aspects. The limitation is that, of course, you are limited. You have no longer access to the DOM at all, and you have no longer access to be able to do whatever you want, just like using your UX framework, because you will be limited to the boundaries of adaptive card. But the good news is that because of adaptive card, we will be able to render these kind of components natively in React Native when you are in mobile, when you are in the mobile version of Viva Connection Dashboard. So basically, you are creating your component in JavaScript, and we will be able to render that natively in the mobile version that uses React Native of Viva Connection.
So Luca,
Desktop.
Just elaborating on that one, simplifying what you're saying, because I without seeing and without having pictures, really hard for people in this audience to actually understand what it means. But so Viva Connections is basically, there's multiple experiences. The mobile is a big thing in Viva Connections, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
exactly.
And 100%. With SPFx, we'll add the adaptive card-ish way of doing mobile extensibility for Viva Connections, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, but is that then the only way of having Viva Connection extensibility? So does it mean that the Viva Connection Desktop is whatever we as Microsoft give for the people? Can we clarify that one a bit?
So I can try and take a crack at that one.
Okay, cool. It's a kind of a teased question. Let's see if you give me the answer what I'm expecting.
Jim Duncan about. So yeah, you missed Viva Desktop there as well. So the way I describe this, and people keep me honest. So there's the Viva Connections, which is all about the employee engagement, dashboard, cards, small tasks, do stuff, and then provide links to sort of deeper experiences. Viva Connection or Viva Desktop, Viva Connections Desktop,
VCD,
whatever it is really about hosting your connection portal site inside Teams. Like that picture there, exactly. One of the pieces of that is the dashboard, which is on the right-hand side of that screen. You can kind of see it. Those will be the adaptive cards. That'll be the same content that appears in the mobile engagement app. The way you extend that is via the new model that we're discussing obliquely. The rest of the page is standard SharePoint pages, web parts, customizations, extensions, et cetera, et cetera.
And the new model, to be clear, are new component types using SharePoint Framework. So it's not a new development model. It's just like a new component
these
type.
are new component types, but coming back on for a lot of customers, the big thing is actually the desktop. So coming back in here, I can modify this experience and I can add my extensibility and my custom web part on this UX.
Yeah,
correct.
That's correct. That's a page.
With that dashboard thing there being new web part that will be coming out around the same time that says here are these dashboard elements, these cards that I've created and configured and so forth. I want them to appear on my connections desktop experience.
Yeah, cool. But that means that all of the partners and customers, first of all, can define what's the header, what's the menus, what's the UX, what's the content, what's the elements in here. And then we have this additional piece, which is around the mobile experiences, prioritize the mobile experiences, which is the new extensibility model, which we can see here with SharePoint Framework. Cool. Now we're, unfortunately, we're running. We could have actually had this discussion for a long, long time. Now we're running out of time. So we have 2 minutes for somebody to walk through all of the other major areas related on the future of SPFx.
A quick barnstorm through here.
And of course, the really important thing is also the quality improvements in the last piece. But let's walk through the other ones as well.
Yeah. So we're investing a bunch, as Luca said, around the team's development model. Support for SDK 1.9 will be in the next release. It came out like 2 days after we forked for the stabilizing the 1.12. So it'll be in the next one. The configuration of meeting apps, the initial version we have right now doesn't allow configuration. We want to allow the configuration. There's some interesting issues around that. The store acquisition, which Luca alluded to, isolated solutions right now are not supported. So you can have an isolated web part, but you can't run that in Teams. So we want to get that up and running. One of the biggest quality of life things will be this next bullet with the rich client auth improvements.
We can talk for an hour about that, so we don't have time.
What's that?
But no, I was saying there should be hours.
To log into SharePoint via a browser to get a cookie dropped in your thing to then allow the rich client to work. That will just work natively. And then some specific developer improvements, a workbench that works in Teams so that you don't need to go through the whole song and dance of deploying your stuff into SharePoint and then syncing it to Teams before you can use it. As well as working with a team that is building sort of deeper VS Code integration for Teams development, F5 deployment, and that sort of thing, so that the SPFx model is appear during that flow as the Azure model is. Okay, you want to talk about store improvements there, Luke?
Sure. From terms of store improvements, we are working to modernize finally the user experience and the app catalog to the 2020-2021. So the idea is to make that a little bit more modern and to do things just like, if you don't have the app catalog, we'll create that for you when you need it. So when you get an application from a store or when you are performing other functionalities that require the app catalog. And the same will also apply for the end user acquisition. So being able for end user to acquire solution from the store more in the context where the end user is. So instead of going to the new app, add an app, being more in the context of the picker or in the context of the page. And then from communications, I think it's something that between me and you, Pat, can talk about. The most important thing is that we want to start to surface every time we release SharePoint Framework, not only the content in the library, but also things just like all the work that we did on authentication that has nothing to do with the library, but it's a big step that we did in the backend because, for example, we got rid of ADL and we are now using MSAL. We are introducing this new on behalf of flow that will allow rich client to be able to be on pair in terms of functionalities and capabilities to the web and things like that. You want to talk about the quality?
Sure. So how best to approach? So there's a few things at play here. One of them, we obviously dropped the ball with the 1.12 release. The level of changes under the surface was a lot more than visible through the external changes. And we didn't do enough depth and breadth of validating those underlying changes. That's totally our bad. So there's a couple things that we want to do there. One of them is simply on us to have a more stringent pass before we release. We tend to drill more into the runtime and end user experiences, make sure those are totally rock stable. And we missed basically the stuff that you guys interact with the toolchain. So beefing up the toolchain validation a whole bunch. We're also brainstorming ways to have beta releases. So right now we have official releases that let you build against beta product features. That's like the -- beta flag. We also want to introduce the notion of beta for the build and tooling. And so we're brainstorming on how to do that, whether we follow like the node versions where you've got like even and odd versions, or just releasing a generator that only produces beta packages. We're trying to work that out so that we can have, for when we have larger changes to the tool chain, that we can do all the testing that we're aware of, but then also allow people to vet it themselves without it having the official release moniker associated with it.
Right, correct. And the idea is to ship that before so that we can have some kind of bake time for some time and then quickly react on feedbacks that we get on GitHub, stabilize, and release GA.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, it's obvious in hindsight, as some of the comments in the thread are alluding to. We'll follow up with some of the ideas that are dropped out there as well. But yeah.
Cool. Thank you for this one. Thank you, Pat and Luca, on dropping and just giving some additional insights on the direction. And also, we do apologize the inconvenience caused by 112. It certainly wasn't the intention, and we 100% need to improve on this one. And there's a big commitment internally now on really making things better. But please do keep on informing us on any issues and any performance issues and any quality issues. That's super important for us for sure. Now, the recording of this call will be available within 24 hours in the Microsoft 365 community YouTube channel in AKMS M365 PnP videos. And you can follow us on Twitter. The next SPFx call is 2 weeks from now at April 8th, 7 a.m. Pacific time. That's going to actually flip the Europe to the normal time zone again because of the daylight zone switches is different weeks in the US and Europe. We've been in this mixed situation for now. Next Microsoft 365 developer call is on April 1st. In general, there's a lot of community calls. Go and AKMS M365 PnP to catch all of the options and pick which ones you want to actually watch and which recordings you want to watch from the YouTube channels. But that's it for now. So thank you, Mikael. Thank you, David, for the great demos. Thank you, all of the open source project leads for the updates of today. And thank you, Luca and Pat, to the situation update on 1.12. And that's it for now.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody. We'll be in touch. Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Have a good day. Bye.